Seoul awoke to a kind of uproar it hadn't felt in years. A headline swept across every platform before dawn even broke. Gong Yoo and Kim Go-eun confirmed their marriage after 8 years of rumors. The nation didn't simply wake up, it exploded. Phones vibrated non-stop. Cafes buzzed with disbelief. And news stations scrambled to rewrite their morning scripts. Even the quiet alleys of Samcheong-dong felt charged. As if the city itself could feel history shifting. But behind the chaos of the announcement was a story far more delicate, far more private, far more human than what the public ever imagined. Their love story didn't begin with the confirmation, it began 8 years earlier. In moments so small, so intimate, that even the cameras failed to capture their meaning. Back in 2016, during the filming of Go-eun, their chemistry had been undeniable. Fans called it too natural to be acting. All critics praised how seamlessly they moved together in every scene. But what the world didn't know was that the bond forming off-camera was even more powerful. Not in dramatic declarations or romantic confessions, but in the kind of quiet looks exchanged when no one else was paying attention. There was one night during a long shoot in freezing early winter. Rain machines drenched the set, and Kim Go-eun, shivering in her thin costume, tried to hide her discomfort so production wouldn't fall behind. She stood alone beneath the tent, arms wrapped around her body, pretending she was fine. Then Gong Yoo appeared behind her, carrying his thick padded jacket. Without saying a word, he draped it around her shoulders. She looked up in surprise. He simply smiled, then hurried back to the set without waiting for thanks. That moment never appeared in behind-the-scenes clips. It lived only in the memory of the staff who witnessed it and exchanged knowing glances. Weeks later, after an emotionally exhausting crying scene, she stayed behind in the corner of the studio trying to regain composure. The room emptied out slowly. The footsteps faded. She thought no one had noticed how long she lingered. But when she wiped her eyes and looked up, Gong Yoo was the only one still there. He stood at a polite distance, hands in his pockets, watching her with the gentlest eyes she had ever seen on a colleague. He didn't approach, didn't intrude, he simply waited until she steadied her breathing. When she finally nodded at him, he nodded back as if to say, "I'm here. You're not alone." Both of them left the studio together, walking side by side in silence under the dim hallway lights. No one ever spoke of that night, because even in those early days, their connection grew in a way neither intended nor expected. She carried wounds the public never saw, pressure from the industry, heartbreak she kept buried, criticism that cut deeper than she admitted. And he carried the weight of being Gong Yoo, the enigmatic star who pretended the spotlight didn't burn sometimes. They recognized something in each other, a fragile tenderness, an understanding that fame was a performance but pain was not. They were drawn together not because of the romance people assumed, but because they made each other feel safe. When dating rumors first emerged, the public believed their silence was denial. But the truth was far more complicated, and far more emotional. At the time, Kim Go-eun had just gone through a painful breakup and was receiving harsh, often cruel online reactions. Gong Yoo, understanding the brutality of public scrutiny better than anyone, refused to let their closeness make her situation even harder. Instead of approaching her with romance, he approached her with protection. He kept his distance publicly, gently. Even though privately he worried for her. He told a close friend, someone who later confirmed this anonymously, that she deserves peace, not pressure. And that was the beginning of their long, quiet pact. For years, fans speculated about secret dates, matching accessories, suspicious glances. But the truth was that their relationship didn't progress through hidden meetings, it progressed through care. Through the way he always sent a supportive message when she started a new project. Through the late-night conversations where she shared her fears about the industry. Through the meals he sent to her set. And only with "take care of your health." Through the way she watched all his interviews, not for gossip, but to make sure his tired eyes weren't signs of deeper exhaustion. Then came 2020, the year that changed everything. A witness in Jeju claimed they saw the two actors sitting quietly in a nearly empty seaside cafe. The agencies denied it immediately. But the locals insisted, it was them. They weren't holding hands. They weren't behaving like a celebrity couple. They were simply talking, slowly, softly, as if the world outside the window did not exist. What the agencies held was that this meeting wasn't romantic at all. It was emotional. Kim Go-eun had recently lost someone close to her, a loss she never discussed publicly. She had been grieving quietly, disappearing from social media for weeks. Gong Yoo, who heard the news through mutual friends, insisted on checking on her. He flew to Jeju during his short break just to sit with her. They walked along the beach, the wind cold and sharp. It was the first time she allowed herself to cry in front of someone. He didn't hug her. He didn't try to wipe her tears. He simply stood beside her as she broke, giving her silence instead of solutions. Later, she said privately to a friend, "He held my grief without touching me. I've never felt anything like that." This was when she realized he wasn't just a colleague or a friend. He was home. And yet, they still didn't date publicly. They didn't dare. She wasn't ready. And he respected that. He promised her then, as they watched the Jeju waves crash against the rocks, "You're ready. I'll follow your timing." It became the quiet promise that defined the next years of their lives. Meanwhile, Gong Yoo was dealing with his own storms. The public saw him as flawless, unshakable, mysterious, perfectly composed. But behind the scenes, struggled with deep anxiety between 2018 and 2020. Fame had isolated him. Expectations weighed heavily. And his fear of disappointing fans often kept him awake at night. He didn't tell Kim Go-eun at first, not wanting to add to her burdens. But she sensed something was wrong. She always had a strange ability to read him. Once, during a press event, she noticed his trembling hand hidden behind the podium. Afterward, she sent him a message, "You don't have to carry everything alone." It stunned him. No one had said something like that to him in years. The message became the turning point for him, the moment he realized she held space for him the same way he held space for her. As the years passed, their quiet bond deepened. But they kept it protected like something fragile and sacred. They met rarely, spoke often, and stayed connected in ways the public would never detect. They matured individually, healed separately. They learned how to love slowly. And gradually, they moved from silence to certainty. On the final night before his 2023 fan meeting, he texted her the same message he sent 8 years earlier during Go-eun, "Are you home safely?" She realized then that the feeling had never changed. It had only grown. Which is why, on the morning their announcement shook the country, her heart remained calm. She knew the truth. 8 years was never hesitation. It was protection. It was patience. It was love choosing the right moment to speak. And that moment had finally come. The day Gong Yoo and Kim Go-eun decided to share their truth with the world was quiet, almost deceptively ordinary. Seoul's sky was soft and pale. Kind of morning where nothing felt rushed. Yet behind that calm exterior, two hearts were making one of the most life-changing decisions of their lives. They had carried a love that lived in shadows, and strengthened through distance, grief, growth, and time. Now, after 8 long years, they stood at the threshold of a moment they once thought would never come. Fans believed the timing was random. Reporters claimed the couple chose the moment for maximum media impact. But the truth was far gentler, far more vulnerable, and far more intimate than anyone could have imagined. Kim Go-eun wasn't ready, not because she doubted him, but because she doubted herself. Feared that stepping into a public relationship would bring backlash, scrutiny, and responsibilities she wasn't emotionally prepared to carry. After the loss she suffered in 2019, her heart needed time to rebuild. She once told a close friend, "Love is beautiful, but I'm afraid I will break something precious if I rush." She didn't rush. Neither did he. Gong Yoo waited, not out of hesitation, out of deep, unwavering love. He knew that loving someone meant understanding their wounds, pushing them to heal on your schedule. He watched her rise in her career, watched her struggle quietly, watched her grow into a stronger, more grounded version of herself. And through it all, he held on to the belief that their moment would come when her heart said, "Now I can accept happiness." But 2022 brought a shift. Kim Go-eun stepped into a new phase of her life, emotionally brighter, more stable, spiritually calmer. She had completed difficult roles, accomplished projects she was proud of, and found strength she didn't know she possessed. And although she didn't say anything to him directly, Gong Yoo sensed it. He always sensed her changes before she spoke them. Then came the night that would eventually become the foundation of his proposal. They met at a quiet coastal town in Sokcho, one of their few, carefully chosen places where no one recognized them. The small wooden cabin they rented smelled faintly of pine. And the ocean murmured as if whispering secrets only lovers could understand. It had been raining earlier, leaving the earth cool and the night air tinged with the scent of wet leaves. They cooked dinner together, laughing softly as she teased him for cutting vegetables too neatly. Like a perfectionist chef, there was a warmth between them that didn't need grand gestures. The meal was finished. He stepped away for a moment and returned holding a small, worn-out book. It was her favorite, the one she always brought when traveling. The one she reread whenever she felt lost. She opened it instinctively, and something fell into her lap, a simple, elegant ring. He didn't kneel. He didn't prepare a speech. Instead, he sat beside her, his voice steady and filled with emotion that had waited years to be spoken. "I wanted to give this to you earlier," he said quietly. "But I wanted to make sure you felt safe first. Not for the world. Not for our careers, for yourself. Because I wanted your heart to rest. You've cared so much for so long, and I didn't want to be one more weight." Her hand trembled. She wasn't crying yet. Breath hitched, her chest tightening with emotion she had spent years holding inside. Continued, 8 years isn't hesitation. It's devotion. I wanted to see you heal without pressure. See you grow into someone who chooses happiness without fear. I have loved you in silence. In support, in patience. And if today is still too soon, I'll wait again. Never wanted to rush your heart. His voice broke slightly on the last sentence. That was the moment her tears finally fell, not because of the ring. Because of the man in front of her. A man who loved her not for who the world wanted her to be, but for who she was when the cameras stopped rolling. A man who understood her silence better than her words. A man who had been her safe place long before either of them said it out loud. She whispered, barely audible, "I'm ready." He exhaled, eyes softening as a tremor of relief washed over him. She touched his cheek gently and added, "Thank you for waiting for me, even when I couldn't wait for myself." Her yes wasn't loud or dramatic. It was tender, fragile, and deeply sincere, the kind of yes that comes from a healed heart. They decided to keep the engagement secret for 4 months, not out of fear, but to protect the peace they had finally found. During this time, their agencies prepared statements they crafted to avoid misunderstandings. Trusted stylists and longtime managers were the only ones told. Planned everything meticulously, determined to reveal the news in a way that honored the 8 years they had guarded their love. Then came the morning that shook South Korea. At exactly 9 a.m., both posted their announcement, simple, heartfelt, aligned perfectly. Not dramatic, not theatrical. Just two souls speaking to the world with quiet certainty. Fans cried, screamed, laughed, collapsed onto cafe tables. Goblin clips resurfaced everywhere. Old behind-the-scenes videos trended again. Now seen through the lens of a love story 8 years in the making. News anchors struggled to keep their composure. And reporters admitted they never expected such an ending. People who had never watched Goblin suddenly wanted to. And just a celebrity marriage, it was a national moment of collective disbelief and joy. But while the world celebrated, the couple stepped away from the noise. They spent that morning in a private garden overlooking Seoul, where they could see the city but remain hidden from it. She leaned her head on his shoulder, he held her hand tightly, as though afraid she might disappear if he loosened his grip. Yet she didn't move. She stayed. Grounded, peaceful. He whispered, "We made it." She smiled, replying softly, "We took the long way, but it was the right way." For the first time, they didn't have to hide. For the first time, the world wasn't something to fear. For the first time, their future felt like theirs, fully, finally. Their story was never about drama. About secret dates, not about scandal. It was about patience. About healing. Two people choosing to grow separately so they could one day grow together. 8 years wasn't a delay. 8 years was the journey. And now, standing on the edge of the life they spent nearly a decade protecting, Gong Yoo and Go-eun walked forward, hand in hand, into a future they were finally ready to claim.